Welcome to the SOLTE of the Earth podcast. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus tells his disciples that they are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. But what does it mean to be salt or light? What would it look like to stand out from the world, provide flavor, and shine a light to those around us? And how can we follow Jesus' example for our lives? Join us as we learn and discuss what it means to be salty and to live more fully for Christ. Welcome to the SOLTE of the Earth podcast. This is episode number 26. We are joined by our guest, Reuben Critchfield, for the second time, actually.
Good to be here again.
You actually get the honor of being our first guest and now our first repeat guest.
Ooh, I do feel rather special.
Which I realized that, and it's like, Jonathan and I were talking about that. It's been like almost 3 years ago because it was March 2021.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. But here we are. So in that time, a lot of things have changed in the past 3 years. You've kind of
a lot has changed, a lot more than I expected to happen in a 3 years period of time.
Kind of been a roller coaster of sorts in different areas, both physically and emotionally and spiritually. Yes. A lot has happened since that last podcast.
Yes.
So you've gone through a dark period, but also you kind of had a recovery. You want to talk about a little bit of what happened there?
So not just recovery, but healing in many ways. So what happened was around that time, a lot of things happened. My surrogate mama had died, passed away. A lot of things had happened with my former church, my community. Things had gotten really dark and ugly. And my girlfriend broke up with me. There was a lot of family issues. Some things got really nasty there. And there are lots and lots of other little things. And I had struggled for many years in the past with depression. I've had health issues for the last 6-8 years. And with everything falling apart, I continued to fall apart even further, and turned to eating and to cope with it, and everything just disintegrated. I did not feel like praying anymore, wasn't reading my Bible, which affected my mind, which turned me to eating more, which made my health issues worse, which made, everything compounds on each other. Mentally, I was not okay, so I didn't take care of my body, which made my mind worse, which made me spiritually worse, which made me mentally worse. It's just a cycle back and forth, and it just went downhill really, really, really fast, really hard. So I'd ended up got to the point where I was 330 pounds, and I had a lot of health issues, and depression at that point was very terrible. It was to the point where I would sit on my bed I get home from working night, sit on my bed and wouldn't move except to eat or use the bathroom, and then sit on my bed and would just blank out. And then dealing with suicidal thoughts at that time, it got really bad. Like I said, I've had depression in the past, and I thought, this is what it was. But then I went to a whole new level, and I didn't know until talking to people afterwards that there was another level but most people don't know about it. It got so dark that I didn't want to kill myself, because then I wouldn't be able to feel pain. I wouldn't be able to suffer. I didn't know it could get that dark. And I would sit there wanting to die, wanting to end it, because of the physical problems, because of the mental problems, because of everything. I just wanted to end it all. But yet I wouldn't let myself, because I needed to feel more pain. And that was kind of where I was at for almost a year. At that same time, I was so sick. I was missing appointments with pretty much all my friends. I couldn't get out to do anything. So heavy that trying to get down onto the floor, get something up, was just terrible. The house was a mess. Couldn't clean, didn't have the mental energy to do anything. And that's kind of where I got to this very dark place.
Very dark, almost masochistic, like wanting yourself to suffer.
Yeah.
Sort of thoughts.
Yeah.
Which you mentioned, like you had depression before, but new level of depression.
Right.
Which depression already is this thing that most people can't comprehend if they haven't experienced it.
Right.
So this was like even deeper, darker or worse in like every way possible.
Right.
And
again, not wanting to pray and not wanting to read the Bible, and that fed into it. And what made it a little bit worse was this culture we have that's seeped into the churches, unfortunately, too, is this idea of, I am the way I am. I can't help it. There's nothing I can do about it. You hear obese people saying it, and I can use that term because I was, being 330 pounds, I can say anything about that.
Yeah.
There's so many people who use that term. Well, it's just the way I am. If you don't love me for the way I am, I can't change. I can't help it. Other communities say it. Well, I'm just the way I am. That's not true, and we'll get into that in a second.
Mm-hmm. Well, just the fact that you're, I guess, able to talk about this, and it's amazing that you are able to talk about this, even though it's, I'm sure, very painful, and you're thinking back on these dark moments. Like, you've had, like you say, some healing. Like,
right.
You're not at all in the same place as you were there, and
not at all.
I mean,
not at all.
Having kind of being able to watch some of this from, I guess, a fairly close distance, seeing the descent, kind of that downward spiral that you talk about, but then, and not, of course, I didn't know all about it, but seeing it, and then also the climb out,
I want to jump in on that. Is not being able to see it is one of the things that people don't understand. Is for those of us who are dealing with depression, dealing with being overweight, dealing with whether it's mental health or other things, we don't know how to communicate sometimes, or we think we are communicating, but we're left to use the same words that everyone else is using. An example I'd used earlier was for a person who's well and healthy, they say they're having a good day or having a bad day. That means something very different from somebody with health issues saying they're having a good day or a bad day. Somebody who's not well says they're having a good day. That simply means it's not as bad as it has been, but it's still not actually good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's... And to agree, like I was there and I could see some of it, but I didn't see all of it. And I'm sure there were times when you were trying to communicate things to me,
but didn't
and
really
it wasn't
know how.
registering.
Right.
Maybe I got part of it, but not all of it. But
and that's where sometimes we don't know how to teach. We don't ever want somebody to be in a place where they're dealing with depression. We don't want someone to be where they're dealing with extreme health issues. We don't want them to deal with eating disorders. And we don't know how to explain to those people how to communicate when there's a problem. And part of it's my fault because I didn't know how to communicate.
Yeah. But you have had some healing now.
Yes.
I've seen the upward kind of trend. You're not at all in the same place you were 2 years ago.
Right.
So you want to kind of talk about that, like this kind of recovery and healing that you've had.
So something that kind of turned it around is it finally got to the breaking point where I decided I couldn't go on with life anymore, living with this much pain, this much being sick all the time, this much problems and pain all the time. Go ahead. So, like I said, I hit a breaking point where I decided I needed to either change something or I needed to just end it. I couldn't continue life as I was living it anymore. And a quote that changed everything was, "Change happens when the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of changing." That struck me because trying to change, trying to diet, trying to exercise is painful, is uncomfortable, is pleasant. Trying to take meds all the time, trying to discipline is very painful, if we're being honest, very uncomfortable, very unpleasant. And I was definitely at that place where the pain of staying the same was worse than the very unpleasant, very undaunting, very daunting pain of trying to change. So that's where the journey clicked. That's where I decided, threw the gauntlet down, decided this is it. I choose life. I choose to live. I hate life right now. I hate living, but I want more. And I remember I got down on my knees, and it took me a while to get up off my knees afterwards. And I prayed. I said, "Lord, this is where I start." It was December 13th. People say that 13 is an unlucky day, but for me, it has a bit of a sentimental value. And so I started moving forward, started making some changes in my diet a little bit, and kind of went off that wagon for a while because of Christmas and New Year's. But then afterwards, I had gotten sick yet again. So it was January 11th is when I finally jumped into a proper diet and decided it couldn't be a diet. It needed to be a lifestyle. And that was the big thing. And that's where it started moving forward. And within 2 weeks of changing my diet, putting my phone away at a certain time of night, getting up at certain times in the morning, within 2 weeks I started feeling better. A week after that, I noticed my weight dropping. A few weeks after that, I was able to move, able to turn around, get out of the chair without rocking forward and trying to launch myself out. And lost 30 pounds in the first month, 20 pounds after that, 20 pounds after that, and worked very hard on living a disciplined life. And again, about that same time within the first 3-4 weeks, it was the desire to read my Bible started coming back. My mind cleared. Within 2.5 months, the depression was gone. I've lived with depression pretty much my whole life. And here in 2.5 months of eating correctly and working hard, lifting weights, getting on my bike, which was, wintertime, so I had set it up on a trainer. And at first it was so embarrassing because I could only do 5 minutes and fall off the bike and lying on the floor panting and heaving. 5 minutes, that's all I could do. But again, my mind started to clear, depression started lifting within a matter of months. But that was the trick, was to get through each and every day to get to those months. Because almost every hour I wanted to quit. Because some people are like, oh yeah, I felt like quitting. How much did you want to quit? And that's the hard thing when you're trying to change yourself. That temptation to quit is there every hour. And you have to fight through it all day, every day. But we are blessed that we get to a point where we're free of that.
All right, so you almost, you went from this dark place to almost being better off than you were before.
I am better off than I am before.
So in a way, you kind of said you had that moment and that quote of, the pain of staying the same has to be worse than the pain of changing. So in a way, without that deep pain, which no one would wish upon anybody,
right,
you would not have then risen to this new level.
Right. Because 6 years ago or more, 7 years ago now, discovered I had a thyroid issue, discovered I had diverticulitis, discovered, hypoglycemia. And with my current diet and lifestyle, that's gone. Simple things like my skin spots have shrunk, which is, quote, medically not possible. Thyroid issues do not heal, but that's gone. There's no trace in my blood work. The pre-diabetes is gone. It's a complete physical healing. And this is stuff I've been dealing with for years before I fell into the depression. And yeah, physically, my energy, my stamina is much better than it was 5 years ago.
It's a powerful testimony there, just for because we hear and we know a lot that God sometimes uses the low periods in our life to prepare us for what he wants us to be, but also, having the actual testimony of you can say without a doubt, fully confident, I am better off than I was. Much better off in some
Much
ways.
Better off.
And
in many areas, not just physically. The physical is one of the main ones. Better off spiritually and mentally too. I've dealt with the depression in the past. I've struggled with memory. My memory is sharper. I still forget things. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So nice. In lots of little things are way better. Spiritually, I feel like I'm in a much better place too, because there's the desire to read my Bible and not simply, I have to do it. I feel much more at peace. I'm pursuing a life of discipline, and I feel that is one of the things that God can use and lead a person who's living a disciplined life. If you're aimless, well, God can't really nudge you. If you're going for something, then God can redirect. And that's something that I've learned. It wasn't a conscious choice. It's something I've learned the more I've walked down this journey.
And so you kind of mentioned there that in a way your kind of downward spiral and then your healing, it wasn't just physical, It was a physical and emotional and spiritual.
And
kind of
spiritual.
all at once.
Right.
The downward spiral and the healing and recovery. So what do you see as kind of the relationship those all have with each other? How do they change and improve with each other?
Well, it is interesting. This hopefully answers your question. I have noticed, this being a new year, 2024, in the last few months, that how I respond in a workout, if I'm able to go hard and heavy lifting weights or push really hard, that usually means I'm in a good place mentally. And if I'm in a good place mentally, that's a pretty good indicator that I'm off balance, or that I'm on balance spiritually. But if I'm off balance spiritually, that affects my mind, which ends up affecting my workouts. And so it's kind of a meter. My workouts are a meter to see how I'm doing. Is there something I need to heal? And recently walked through an experience of mental and spiritual healing, dealing with some stuff from my past. And before that, for about a month and a half before that, was not doing so good, not making progress in the physical workouts. And as soon as I walked through this, almost immediately my workouts got better, because I could also feel my mind, I was so much more at peace, spiritually at peace. There was spiritual healing, and suddenly the physical side is doing much better. So I do think that the physical is a meter of how the spiritual is. So I don't know if that quite answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. You're kind of saying that they're all, in a way, I forget, they correlate with each other.
Right.
They all kind of, to a degree, move together. They're interconnected. You can't just separate them and say, like, have categories. Here's my physical health. Here's my mental health. Here's my spiritual health. And they're at different levels. To a degree, they're going to move up and down together.
Absolutely.
Is kind of your experience there. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing to think about, because thinking like within the church, within Christianity, a lot of times we focus on the spiritual side. And it's all about, spiritually doing well, doing the things that we're supposed to do. We kind of forget about the other sides. We kind of forget about
really do.
Mental and physical and emotional. It's all about, what do I need to do to be spiritually right, to do the right things, and to be a godly person.
Well,
which is all very good.
At the same time, you can't focus just on the physical and hope the spiritual's good. Right. You do have to address each area, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Right.
It's not like, so they correlate with each other, but you can't just focus one and expect the others to change too. It's if you're being intentional about all of them, they will all increase or decrease together. I guess what I'm saying, kind of pointing out, is we tend to fully focus on the spiritual, and kind of at the loss of the other two in a way.
I see that a lot, especially in churches. I have the right to pick on this. I see a lot of obese people within the churches, and happy that way. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And you have discussions with them about faith and spiritual things, and you notice they have a lot of little issues. It's like, well, there is something you could do about that, but they don't want to hear it because they're only interested in the spiritual.
And I mean, like you point out, there's how many times have you seen people who are overweight in an unhealthy way, or have some other health issues that they clearly have and they're ignoring within a church.
Right.
And you see them 10 years later, 15 years later, they're the same. They haven't changed. And while it's not like they're sinners and they're going to hell for not taking care of their body, but
they could live a better life.
You kind of wonder, like, where could they be if they didn't have this, this weight issue or health issue or whatever it was.
Right.
What if they did put the work into focusing? How much more could they, be achieving, and how much better could they just feel in general?
Something that, if I can do a bunny trail, something I got to experience this past summer, just really gave me fuel for this journey. Was I got to go to Alaska, got to hike up a mountain, got to splash through a glacier stream, got to hike through the trails, and I kept thinking the whole time, I wouldn't have been able to do this a year ago. I wouldn't have been able to do this 2 years ago. It's an entire set of experiences, God's amazing outdoors creation, would never have gotten to see if I hadn't been willing to put in the work and effort of changing.
Yeah. You wouldn't have been able to have all those nice things, and you maybe, to a certain degree, even if you weren't that healthy, you would have had a nice time, but it's kind of better because you put in the work, in many ways. So kind of similar topic, a little different. So what do you see as some of the mistakes people sometimes make in like their journey for physical and emotional and spiritual health? I guess we kind of already talked about the one where you focus on one area.
Focus on one, yeah.
But do you see any other mistakes that people a lot of times will make with regards to that?
Yes. One of the things that I talk about that it goes very much against our Christian culture is you need to be selfish about it. There's so many people like, there's some of those songs where you put Jesus first, which should be yourself last and others in between. There is a time and a place for that. But when you're specifically trying to heal from something, you need to take a time period and need to be selfish about that. There will be a time where you can help lots of other people, but first you need to take care of your own. If you have a broken leg, you're not going to go out and help people while you have a broken leg. You're going to take that 6 weeks to let it heal. And mental healing, physical healing, any of that, we need to be serious about taking a time out and focusing on self for a time. And again, being serious. That's one of the big mistakes I see people doing, not stepping back to focus on self.
And that's, I feel like that's a really big danger and issue sometimes with Christian circles, is because we're so driven, and we want to keep doing what is good, and we feel like unless we're achieving this level, unless we're doing all the things and participating and helping out and going to every church service sometimes,
right.
Just examples, we feel like we're slacking off and we're doing poorly. It's almost like we feel obligated, and all those things are what is putting us where we should be, and to stop them is unthinkable sometimes. Because that's what you have to do. You have to do it. And to think of taking a break to do something that maybe you actually really have to do, to take that self-care a little bit, is unthinkable.
Because a lot of people get really offended even when I say you need to start saying no to people. Like, how can you say no? I said, you'll be able to help more people. Well, how does that make sense? Because they see it as an opportunity lost. It's like, well, that opportunity's gone forever. Well, wait a minute. If you're not doing well, you get 10 people asking for help during the week. You're only healthy enough and well enough to say yes to 3 people. That's still 7 lost opportunities because you were not well, you were sick, it just couldn't. You say no for a time period to all 10, they will get help from somebody. But you make it clear that I'm being selfish with this time. And then eventually you get healthy and well, you find yourself helping way more than that 3. You might not be able to get to all 10 people who need help, but you can help way more than just those 3.
It's almost like we expect the same level of output from ourselves and from other people all the time, irregardless of where they're at.
Right.
So it's like, yes, you're sick or you're having mental health issues, but you still need to perform at a high level, right?
Yes.
And that pushes us, we push ourselves more than we should sometimes to meet those expectations, either from ourselves or from other people, when the reality is there are times when we will have to lower our output because of where we're at.
And then jumping back to your question, one of the other mistakes I see people making a lot, this is a big one, especially with social media. It's, shall I dare to use the phrase, a bit of a plague. A lot of people do changes for other people. They want to go through this transformation for approval. They want to go through it to get seen. You have to be selfish. You have to do it for you. Doing this pain for myself, going through this to make my life better. Not so that somebody else sees me, not that this person will notice. You cannot think about what other people think. That is irrelevant in this time, as long as you're pursuing what God wants. But you have to be intentional about what you're doing and not try to get attention, because that will, if you're not getting your attention, if you're not getting noticed, that will send you spiraling backwards so fast.
Right. If you're kind of feeding off of either attention or criticism, you either won't get the attention you want or you'll get criticism and it will wreck you. kind of along that line, you have received, I guess, some criticism for your methods of dieting and weight loss and things.
Yes, let's
not
get into that.
Not everybody agrees with the way that you've done things.
Yes, this is fun. So I'll jump into that. My particular diet, my lifestyle is carnivore.
Oh.
I've cut out carbohydrates. I've cut out pretty much most vegetables. I've cut out all fruits. I've cut out everything. And pretty much, I will have some vegetable, not the purest of carnivores, but it is pretty much meat, protein. My standard breakfast is eggs and bacon. Lunch is bratwurst and cheese. And supper is usually some kind of steak, some kind of beef. And or eggs again. I love eggs. And that is my life. I'll have some vegetables now and again, but it's more of a treat than part of my life. And I have encountered a lot of resistance in that. For the diet, we'll get to the exercise portion in a bit, but there have been a number of people who try to guilt or shame me, tell me I can't do that. I have a relative who is a firm believer on low calories. This is the only way. He's told me to my face many times that you can only lose weight if you are hitting a certain calorie dose, that you cannot lose weight while eating bacon. Well, I eat bacon 5 days a week, and I'm down by 120 pounds. So, yeah, I've had people literally yelling at me for my good, trying to save me, for my betterment, yelling at me, telling me I need to eat vegetables, I need to eat fruit, this is not sustainable. There will probably be a day where I will quit, but for now, this has been what God is using to heal me of my illnesses and weight and everything else.
I think you've used the term before. This is what's working well for you.
Right. Works very well. My body responds very well. Encountered a YouTuber who's made it. He said, this is biblical fact. And he repeated that phrase, biblical fact, that you need to have calorie intake, and he gave the whole formula. I went through a day and I looked at how many calories, because it was something like 1,800 calories for the average man, needs to be less than 1,800, something like that, in order to lose weight. I added up my calories per day. I'm about 4,500 calories a day and losing about 20 pounds a month at the time. I've had an older gentleman who would go and find articles about people who eat a lot of meat. And he would misread them, unfortunately, because he's like, there was an article about meat being very high in B12. He misread it. He thought it meant that it would cause you to be deficient in vitamin B12.
Oh, okay.
And so he's finding articles and giving them to me to read, showing me how bad what I'm doing.
And they're not all even saying that. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, no, that's not what this is saying. But the fact that people go out of their way to try and tell me that I'm wrong in the way that I'm going about it.
Mm-hmm. And things like diet and exercise are things people tend to be very opinionated about.
Right.
And you're coming across those opinions where there's, many people, no matter what diet or exercise they have, say this is the right way.
Right.
What is your response to that kind of perspective of there is only one way?
That is a very dangerous thing. It is very dangerous. It's very much the mob mindset. But here's the thing that people fail to understand, is if we are all pursuing health, and then here's the key point. If we're actually pursuing health, there is no one right way if we're actually pursuing. Now, if you were to go and eat ice cream every night and go, okay, this is my method. Well, clearly that's not going to help you lose weight. But that's my method. Well, you're not actually pursuing health because ice cream isn't going to help. But if you're doing something that actually pursues health, every body responds differently to things. And then coming back around to exercise, I do exercise a little bit different than some people. There's a huge push in the gym world to, you got to push till failure, you got to get true muscle failure. Well, I'm in my 30s now. My body does not heal very quickly anymore and is much more prone to injury. I can't push to failure or I'm going to be injuring myself too quickly. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, you're not doing that right because you need to be pushing to failure. Sorry, not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It is true for certain peoples in certain places. There are stereotypes for a reason. We need to do things a certain way because, however, not everyone is there. We got to be mindful that other people are in different places. And dealing with injuries, that's the other thing too, is I've encountered my share of injuries during this journey. Well, I can no longer do biking. That was one thing. I had a leg injury. Well, I can't bike anymore. Well, that means I'm going to have to throw that all out. No. Go for walks, get a jump rope. I can still do exercise. I just can't do that particular motion while I heal that part of my body.
It's almost as if we're made uniquely and we have different needs and different ways of doing things. And then that perspective of like one right way. And you can counter it in a lot of ways. I things like diet and exercise, like I say that because there's certain categories people seem to be particularly strong opinionated about.
Right.
And that, it goes in all sorts of areas, and it comes into religion and Christianity as well,
right,
where there is only one right belief on either a topic, or there's only one right denomination. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes well-meaning people get really carried away in these things, trying to help people, but they end up doing it in a way that is destructive. And
particularly the church and religion type thing. People can be very, very cruel and vicious and claim that they're some of the most loving people. Yeah, we can get caught up on that.
So the well-meaning, but they get carried away and carry it out in ways that are kind of destructive and unloving. Quite frankly, it happens. And so we all need to be careful about that. And something I know I recognized a while back is that I tended to be a pretty strongly opinionated person, sometimes about things that I didn't even care about or didn't know anything about. And it's kind of a cultural thing where we there's this idea of like, you need to have an opinion on everything. You need to have a strong opinion.
Right.
Whether or not you've thought about it, whether or not you care. And I realized this, and I kind of made this commitment to myself as like, okay, I actually want to have fewer strong opinions. And unless it's something that really matters, don't have a strong opinion about it. And what really matters to me, it boiled down to like, unless this is like, this is related to God and Christ, don't have a strong opinion about it. And even then, be careful, be cautious, because that mindset is dangerous.
And that's the one thing I've talked to somebody about recently, is coming back to something I said earlier. Why do you have a relationship with Christ? Why do you go to church? Well, and if they were honest, they pretty much admitted that it was because that's what you have to do. Culturally, you have to do it. No, you need to be intentional. You need to be selfish with your relationship with Christ. And that's one of those things, is caring too much what other people think. You can end up following the crowd in the wrong direction.
So that you need to evaluate it and have the reason for yourself at some point in time. Yes. You need to make that choice. You need to make that personal commitment. But definitely dangerous to have opinions that are so strong that we instantly get alienated from people who think differently.
Right.
Because you look at the issues that people do that on, where they get alienated on, and some of them are so silly. It could be simple as...
It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Cat lovers or dog lovers. Like
pineapple on pizza.
Right. Simple, the direction of toilet paper. Simple things like that cause arguments. And sometimes, as silly as it is, they break up relationships over those things. And of course, at the moment, people wouldn't say they're silly. That it's important at the moment is what they say. But like, we need to be careful that we don't have these silly things that are getting in the way of good relationships and good health, and actually maybe be able to learn from the other person. Because the people who come to you and are just out to get you about your diet or your exercise, they are never going to learn anything from you.
Right.
And
that's
if you react defensively, you're never going to learn anything from them either.
And the other thing with it too is about this same mindset, whether it's weight loss, whether it's exercise or a spiritual thing. People forget, they think, oh, this is my way, so I need to promote just this. I'm a huge believer in the carnivore diet, and I will promote it all the time. However, I will not tell anyone, I'll never tell anyone that this is the only way. I had a friend that I've been talking to about this kind of thing, and he's like, well, maybe I should try that. I need to lose 30 pounds. I'm not doing well. And I had him lay out for me what his diet was, what he ate. And I told him, all right, here's what I want you to do. Don't jump into carnivore. Cut out your fast food and cut out sugar. keep eating everything you're eating. Just cut out the fast food and cut out the sugar. And within 2 weeks, he messaged me back going, I'm already dropping weight. I feel so much better. You don't have to go to extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mindset people say, I'm doing it this way, so this must be the only way. No, that's not true.
And I guess coming kind of full circle around is the reason it's important is because we don't talk about it very much, but the things that we eat do impact our mental health, our emotional health, and our spiritual lives.
Very much so.
That's the ultimate goal, right? Is we want to be healthy spiritually. We want to be where we need to be. That's kind of the goal of life in a certain ways. Selfishly, I need to be where I need to be. Maybe people are going to get triggered about us using the word selfishly about Jesus.
And that's why I say it can be touchy sometimes.
But please understand, viewers and listeners, we are not meaning selfish in the bad way that we're talking about, like the good kind of selfish.
Right. It's for me and my God and not to please the people around me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you have anything to talk about? I feel like I've maybe been talking to Reuben and excluding Jonathan.
It's okay.
It's Jonathan's turn.
No, I'm enjoying the conversation.
He's a viewer and listener as well, I guess.
Yeah, this time.
But yeah, this is, I don't know. I know you were kind of excited to talk about some of this stuff, and it's I like talking about it too, and it's exciting because, I mean, some of it we don't talk about it very much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as Christians, like I said, we focus on the spiritual side, but these other things are important.
Very much so.
It is interesting to talk about how spiritual, or like physical and emotional and health, we do need to focus on that for the sake of our spiritual health more, because we can't perform fully, or we can't do everything we want to do for God if we're neglecting our own bodies and our own minds.
Agreed.
So it's something that could probably could think about that more. It's like, yes, I mean, even if we are healthy, it's like, why are we healthy? Like, why do we?
To look good.
Why do we need to?
Yeah.
Because the more I pursue this journey, this lifestyle of discipline, the more I appreciate what it does for my mind.
Yeah.
And the more my mind sharpens, the more I can use my sharp mind to pursue spiritual. So one leads into the other, which leads into the other.
Which reminds me of the Paul saying, "I beat my body to make it my slave," which I forget the verse, but that's anyway. If we don't have discipline, we can't, we can't perform, or we can't have the spiritual relationship that we would like.
Physical discipline so that he can control his physical body, and ultimately Paul's goal is not physical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if he can't control his physical body, then that will hinder you so much in your spiritual walk.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And yeah.
Because I remember a number of years ago trying to use the mental discipline to read my Bible more or do this type of task or learn this. I didn't have the mental discipline to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do I exercise mental? Well, there are people who would say you just need to exercise the mental. And that is a discipline, and there are some benefits to that. But the easiest way to learn mental discipline is through physical discipline.
Which is very connected. Like, for example, like waking up early. For whatever reason you need to do that. It's a discipline, and it's both a mental discipline to make that decision. It's also a physical discipline to actually put that into action.
Yes.
And it can have huge spiritual benefits if you're, waking up early to spend time with God, or whatever the reason is.
Like, the point I am in for several things is, like, both my going to bed routine and my waking up and morning routine is all kind of structured around me having some focused quiet time to read and to pray. And there's a lot of things that learning bit by bit and adding things to it to make it better so that I can have more focused time. So, like, for instance, for me, most mornings I do some exercise, and for me, my goal is not to lose weight. Not for the most part to gain muscle. I'm more doing it to stay healthy, to feel good, and to be awake. Because sometimes if I just woke up and I came down and started reading my Bible, like, I'm dozing off, I'm falling asleep. So the physical side there not only helps me feel great, but also wakes me up so that I can do the spiritual more better.
I heard a quote the other day. It was, you should become a millionaire, not for the money you will make, but for the journey, for what the journey will make of you. Not that we're talking about money specifically, but that last part is. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You offering?
Right? But that struck me as because of pursue this, not for what you will receive, but for what the journey will make of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that was profound.
Yeah, it's another form of discipline, financial discipline.
Right.
There's so many ways you can discipline in, and I think they're all kind of connected. Like if you're disciplined in one area, you're very likely to be disciplined in another area. But
the long journey of discipline is definitely one I feel I've been on for a long time, and you too, and Jonathan as well, I think. There's so much to learn there. And one verse I really like is the like and hate, I guess. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful but sorrowful. It's like, that's what it feels like. Mm-hmm. It's painful to do exercise and do all these things. We don't want to do it at first. But then the next part is, but to those who are trained by it afterwards, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Mm-hmm. And just like, that sounds good. Peaceful fruit of righteousness? Like, who doesn't want to just have that peace and to have the righteousness? But it comes through discipline. And no matter, to a certain degree, any form of discipline will help you. Maybe some forms of discipline are more beneficial than others, but any form of discipline helps you get there because it has kind of effects in other areas.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess this is kind of moving into another topic a little bit, but I know another thing that you've kind of been a focus of yours for several years is growing as a man and discovering what it means to be a man and to be a man of God. Not just focusing on spiritual things, but what is masculinity, and there's a lot of that's kind of been lost in our culture a little bit.
Yes.
We don't have the importance on it. So do you want to kind of talk about some of the things you've been discovering and learning in that field?
And as you stated already, it is something that's been lost and forgotten. The importance is not, it's, shall we say, belittled, and real men are talked down, hated upon. The term toxic masculinity is overused and applied in a bad way in areas that it doesn't apply at all. And that's one of the things that I had been on a journey, didn't even know I was on a journey, trying to understand what is a man for a long time. And because you hear that too, from the single ladies, like, well, you're not man enough. Okay, well, what is a man? You ask anyone, well, what is a woman? Oh, you will be told, you will hear. Everybody knows what a woman is. Well, what is a man? I'd asked a question. Nobody will answer. There's silence.
Toxic,
yeah. So
there's almost like there is no good definition of a man.
Right, and even if they have good things to say, that, man's a provider. Well, that's the selfish point of view. Yeah, that's what can we get from the man. So what is a man? So for me, there's definitely been this journey of pursuing what is manhood, what is a man. And yeah, of course, there is such a thing as taking it too far. And part of what makes a man is, I realize, discipline. I know this almost sounds cliche coming back to what we've been talking about, but it is one of those things. That is why I am so serious about being disciplined. Taking responsibility. I admitted that I was wrong. And that's one thing that a man does, is being responsible. You're responsible for your children, for your wife, but you also need to be responsible for your health, for your actions, for your mistakes. A real man is courageous, and that doesn't mean just in the face of danger, but we have $8 left and we need to buy food and we have a $400 payment. Being courageous in that phase, it will be okay. We'll make it through. People don't realize that takes courage. And, different points like that, finding out what it means to be a man. There's so many people who say, men have it easy, scriptural. Well, there's all the responsibility. Well, clearly you've never read 2 Peter. You've never read Corinthians. There's a lot placed on the men for what husbands are supposed to do. and trying to learn how that applies to every day. Because that's the other thing that is sometimes a little harder too, is we've turned, within the Christian realm in particular, we've turned a lot of these things into platitudes, into nice sayings, and we don't know how to apply that to every day.
So you're, in a way, you're kind of discovering practically, what does that even mean?
Right.
And trying to put it into practice, not
Right.
just knowing it.
Right. If I believe something, I need to have the courage to not back down. When I'm cornered in a gas station or whatever, I believe this, but somebody brings it up and it becomes, we don't want conflict. We shouldn't ever have to face conflict, but sometimes it finds us anyway. But having the courage to be calm and in control of our emotions. And that's the other part of being a man, is being in control. It's not that we are unemotional, it's that we're to be in control. I will have these emotions in the appropriate manner at the appropriate time.
And the culture would say to men, either don't have emotions, or you almost need to be feminine level in your emotions,
Right.
as far as able to share them and talk about them.
Right.
There's a balance somewhere where you can control it, you can talk about it in the right way, but almost sort of stoically, like if it's not to your advantage or it's not the right time.
And
They don't
there's
have a
some
place.
people, a lot of the Christian cultures take the stoicism too far, where you need to be stoic all the time. There's a time and a place for that. And that's the thing, where without, at risk of being dangerous, women, stumbling into a dangerous topic, women are emotional beings. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, where that's just how they perceive the world, is through their emotions. We have emotions too, but we perceive the world a little bit different, with a different set of emotions. And some people don't like that. They're like, oh, you need to shut the emotions up. For us men, you need to shut the emotions up. No. Just control them.
Right, and if...
But don't control to the point where you have shut them off. That's equally dangerous.
Right, and it's interesting because, the idea, I even talking about stoicism a little bit, the idea we have nowadays, isn't quite what, some of the original Stoics were.
Right.
Because I've read some of the works of, Marcus Aurelius, and their version of Stoicism, you're not just shutting off emotions. That's not what it is. You are choosing, these emotions are not beneficial to me in this situation, so I'm not going to have them. It's more of a freeing thing rather than you're just not thinking about it or getting rid of them. It's more of in this moment, I can't be feeling this emotion.
Right.
Because then I'm not going to be able to do my job. It's not so much a denial as it is just a choice. Taking responsibility in a way.
Right.
And doing what you need to do in the moment. And that's very different than sometimes what we have as far as just no emotions.
Right.
Which does not work. Talking about long-term health, men shutting down their emotions, which tends to kind of be their default way of doing
And that's
it.
how I handled depression, is by stuffing it. By shutting down and trying not to feel, it was still there. It was still festering.
Right. And
And
it's kind
we
of our
talked about
default way.
how that led, yeah.
It's kind of the default thing for a man to do, and it doesn't work long term because eventually it comes out, and usually more explosively, with anger or whatever, and it has more damaging effects than if we knew how to properly deal with them. Which I guess we're kind of talking about a lot of things that maybe don't get talked about as much as they should have, as far as men being able to deal with their emotions in a healthy way.
Right.
Is very important, and could probably be talked about more in Christian circles.
Right. And some of the other things, learning with being a man, what is a man, is setting goals, having a direction. So many people, men in particular in this culture, drift through life simply existing with no purpose. And that is a horrible place to be. Having a life without purpose is terrible. Having goals, I've been realizing. And it can be something so simple as setting financial goals, which leads back into responsibility. Health goals, those are easy. But we have to have something to work for. Men must have work, must have a purpose.
Yeah.
And that connects back to a podcast a couple episodes ago with Matthew, because we were talking about goals and the purpose, and ultimately our purpose is related to God, but we also have sub-purposes underneath that.
Yeah.
Because we need to have that drive. We need to have healthy desires, because if we don't, we're just going to kind of, the term a shell of a man comes up.
Yeah.
You're just this empty husk moving through life, existing, not passionate, not driven. More and more I'm seeing a man needs to be like fiery.
Yes.
He needs to like be just driven and not in an unhealthy way, again, because you can be driven in a bad way, but like just have passion, have desire, have something that you're reaching for it and that you want. Sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to want anything.
Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say that I feel like part of the problem with the lack of purposeness has come from the degrading of the culture, kind of degrading some of the masculine traits.
Mm-hmm.
And if men aren't allowed to feel some of these masculine, like, promptings, I guess we can kind of lose some of the purpose. So, I guess an example of that would be the idea of aggression. It's a very masculine, I think it's something that's ingrained in men that kind of is pushed down by ourselves because of the culture we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Another example might be like, well, it's kind of related, is taking a stand for things and being firm and be willing to make confrontation.
Right.
It's another example of things that, because of the culture we're in, we're tempted to push that urge down.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we are pushing these things down that we find purpose in, we will lose purpose in life, and you'll start to see men turning towards other things like that, just to give them like a fake sense of purpose, I guess. Like
or fake sense of excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you can't find excitement in life because you're suppressing your emotions or whatever, you'll find excitement in other things. 2 examples: video games, sports.
Yeah.
One of the examples my favorite examples given by C.S. Lewis in one of his short articles entitled "The Necessity of Chivalry."
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
Yeah, he talks about, for those who don't know, he talks about a man having 2 sides. One side is the lover, the one who can feel things, be emotional, that women would love and who can love women. And the other side, he's a monster, a killer on the battlefield, and having 2 sides. But also emphasizes that a real man cannot swing to both those extremes. You cannot handle every situation as a lover or as a monster. Because that's what people think is a toxic man is, oh, you're fake because you have these 2, it's a conundrum, these 2 opposite points of views, polar opposites. And that's all there is. No, you need to dial it back on each of those. Sometimes you need to step up and put your foot down, but you can't let yourself go to the point of monster. And that's where men get accused of only being capable. If they put their foot down, they think, oh, it's aggression, which means they must be killer. No, we're in control. We have these levels.
Yeah, like we can have these like aggression and violence and stuff. If we have that under the control and we use it for good, then I feel like it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if we use it for the right purposes. Right. And I feel like that's part of the problem with masculinity is we've just trying to get rid of it altogether instead of using it in a controlled way. Right.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of it's an issue in a lot of areas. We tend to think white and black, polar. You are this or you are this. Which creates a lot of issues. Is you either have to be the total monster or the complete gentle sap almost. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the reality is there is almost nothing in life where you are either completely white or completely black. There's almost no scenarios where you are one or the other. It's almost always, I find this interesting. In so many areas of life, there's a balance. Almost like, some Eastern religions or thing would talk about, the yin and yang. There's a balance where you have both of them, but they're in harmony. There's a lot of truth to that in a lot of areas where we can't.
But again, some people think that you have to either be totally one way or totally other. You can be a little one way, being in control of our emotions. That's what I was saying earlier, is be a little sappy or a little aggressive. We don't have to go all the way to extreme. And that's what I'm talking about as men needing discipline, needing control.
And people do this with Jesus because in the Bible, there's the loving Jesus, and then there's the moments when he's more stern, and he throws people out of the temple and things like that.
Yes.
And we all know people who are at either extreme, where they take one or the other as their role model.
Right.
Where Jesus is the guy who he's saying some pretty harsh stuff to the Pharisees,
calling them whitewashed sepulchres,
and he's creating whips, and he is not pulling any punches. And then there's the gentle, the soft, long-haired, conditioned Jesus,
blessing the harlot and having children sitting on his lap.
And there's these two versions, and people kind of pick their version of Jesus that they want, but it's not white and black.
Right.
We need to take both of these. It's one person.
Yes.
They're both together.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous to over specialize, because then we either end up being not loving enough or not firm enough when we need to be.
So the trick is, how do we have those together in harmony? And I think the answer to that is everything we do it out of love. Like, if we're being gentle and kind, it's because we love somebody. If we're being harsh and violent, it's because we love somebody's behind us, like we're protecting. So, everything has to be for a purpose better than ourselves. And if we're doing either of these extremes for just our own selfish reasons,
right,
then
it's it is toxic.
And at the same time, kind of earlier talking about like having kind of open mind is maybe not the word, but not having such strong opinions that we think that this is the only way to handle a situation. It's like going through life with the open mind of like, well, I might be wrong on this. That kind of more of humility is the idea.
Yeah,
humility of like, we do need to be gentle with people because we are also going to make mistakes, and that I find is helpful to get to that right spot of like not being too harsh, because you're going to be more gentle, but then also I don't know, it's a bit weird balance of gentleness and firmness. Not an easy to answer question.
And sometimes we simply don't know the other person's story, why they're doing what they're doing. And that's where it comes into what you said earlier, humility, being humble enough to ask, here's what I'm seeing, here's my knee-jerk reaction, why don't you tell me your side? Sometimes we find that there is a lot we don't know.
Right. A lot of times.
Right.
And then there's some times where, that's a whole journey on its own. That can almost be a whole
And I do think that
topic.
Humility is part of manhood too. Being strong enough to admit we're wrong, or strong enough to admit we don't know.
Which is, I guess that in a way that's almost the one thing, well, depending on how you look at it, we can't find an example of in Jesus, because he didn't have to admit that he was wrong. But he still demonstrated humility, just not in, confessing that he made a mistake. But that example is there as well, where he was humble. Just
it is not my time, he said. This isn't right. Things like that.
Always contributing everything to the Father.
Right.
The example's there. We just can't look and say, like, this is where Jesus confessed. Because, well, he's kind of perfect. So, yeah. Man, I feel like definitely there are maybe some more things to talk about. We could probably talk a lot more about being men and what that involves, and about humility and about asking questions and understanding things, because there's so much in a lot of these topics, that so much room to grow. A lot of things that I know I've learned, and even things I've learned from you. So maybe ought to have you on here another time.
That would be fun.
Be the first third time guest. But because it's definitely a joy having you, and I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, including some of the hard stuff.
Well, thank you for this. I will always jump at an opportunity to share my story, especially if it could help somebody else.
And it's definitely a powerful testimony that, like, you were to some of the dark places you were, and now you're able to talk about it, and you are healed, you are better. And there's always still progress to go.
Right. Still got a ways to go in a lot of areas.
But the testimony is there. Like,
yes.
Right now, you're doing great, and it's awesome to see that. And I want to just thank you and appreciate you for doing that, and for coming on here. So this has been episode number 26 with our guest Reuben here. I don't know what to say. A lot to think on. Hopefully you watched all the way to the end or listened, because there was good stuff all the way through. Go forth, be men if you're a man watching this. Otherwise, live in an understanding way, and balance all the different aspects of life: emotional, mental, spiritual. Don't overfocus. Don't ignore. Definitely don't ignore. Be selfish in a good way. Goodbye.